Yeah, hi Prashant. Good afternoon.
Hello,
Prashant.
can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Can you
Yeah,
please turn on your video, Prashant?
sure. Um, is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah, so Prashant, before we start, can you please quickly show us your ID proof?
I don't know if that will be visible, but yeah, this is my DL.
The DL. Any other ID proof you don't have? Government ID proof?
I don't
Like
have
your
anything.
passport, Aadhaar, PAN.
Yeah, that is that is at my home, and I don't have that right now.
Okay, no issues. Just show us the, just you need to just hold the card like in front of the camera. Yeah, just don't cover your face, Prashant. Make
It's
sure you
not
don't cover.
covered. Yes.
No, no, no. Hold it either on your left or right hand side. No?
Actually, my camera is at the down, not at the upside.
You're not, you're not getting me. Just a second. You're not getting me. Just
Is
a
it
second.
okay
Yeah,
now?
like this. Now you bring the card closer towards the camera, holding in that position only. Yeah, bring it more closer. Can you? I think there is a little low light in the. Can you hold it with your left hand? On your left hand side. Left hand side. Yeah. Bring it little bit more closer. It just yeah, just a second, and just tilt, hold it. Yeah, you can keep it down. We will check with that if required. We will take another.
I have pinged actually Anubrat, but I seems he is in another meeting. So maybe we can start and yeah,
Yeah, I'm checking with him. Jagdish, if you can continue, I am just checking with him.
yeah, give him a couple of minutes maybe. You just check me and update me so that.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So meanwhile, Prashant, can you just brief about yourself? What are your expertise and what you have worked on till this time?
Sure. So, I'm a Java developer working in Java, and I have around 5.6 years of experience. So, along with Java, I have worked with Spring, Spring Boot, Hibernate, and some other technologies. So, basically, throughout my career, I just worked as a backend developer, and I have used some technologies other than Java, like Python, and I have dealt with JavaScript, but not Angular or React, just JavaScript. So yeah, that's a brief summary about me.
Okay. So which version of Spring you have used? So
Initially, I started with Spring 3, and then we migrated towards Spring Boot.
uh, and Java currently Java
Uh,
8 you are using?
we are using two versions. Right now, our main project is in Java 8, and now we are migrating towards Java 11.
Okay. So what are all new features there are in Java 11?
Okay, so I'm not familiar with that. But like I have worked with Java 8 as of now, so I'm not familiar with Java 11 new features.
Okay. No, as you told you are migrating, so it gives some advantage, correct?
I like I told you, like we are migrating towards Java 11, but I haven't got the opportunity to work on it yet. So as of now, I don't know the advantages that we have in Java 11.
Okay. So we'll assume you work on Java 8, okay, and we'll discuss some stuff on
Sure.
that. Okay. So let's say you are aware of Stream APIs
Yeah, yes, I
in
am.
Java. So there is a map and flat map. So what is the difference in that? Can you explain me with some example?
Okay, When we say map, like it's an old collection, and we get a lot of functionality along with it, like iterator for each. We can do that.
Oh,
Flat
I,
map.
I'm talking about, yeah. Let's say I have a array list dot uh, stream dot flat map and array list dot map. With respect to stream API.
Okay, with respect to, so you want me to differentiate between flat map and map?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So so in Java 8, okay. So both of the functions. So basically, in a stream, we have map as a function and flat map as a function, and they both are used basically in one term. They are basically used for transformation and mapping operations, you can say.
No, but there must be some difference, correct?
So map function produces one output. So let me say like one output for one input value, right? Whereas when we talk about flat map function, it produces number of values as output. Maybe let's say at least zero, like zero or more than zero.
Can you give some example? Or you have where you have used that?
So I haven't used flat map. I have used map function. So if I were to tell you about an example, so let's say again like you used array list. So I will use that. So let's say in array list, I have a fruit array list. Let's say mango, orange, pineapple. So if I were to use Stream API, so I can easily map using map function, and it will create a list for me, which can be generated. So that will be one functionality or example of using map function. Again, for flat map, let's say I have a list of integer. So in that case, let's say if I want to get a list of integer. So we have one input here, and I want to get zero or more values. So in that case, flat map will be beneficial.
Okay.
So basic difference is, let's say if I have a list, I would prefer map. If I have a list of list, I would prefer flat map.
Okay. What are all features of Java 8 you have used?
So along with Stream API, like parallel stream, serial stream, we have used like Lambda expression, functional programming, and in interfaces we have new methods, static default, and basically I think the most important thing or the things that we are frequently using is Stream API, or maybe me.
Okay. So can you tell me some of the stream functions?
So like we have already talked about map. We have flat map. We have collect, and we have for filter method to filter out from the list, and so on. So like there are a lot of methods. So
Okay.
like there can be a differentiation between these methods, because like we have types of operations that we do on our data structure. So depending on that, we have methods like terminal operators, intermediary operators. So depending on that, we have methods.
Okay. So let's say you talk that you use a lambda expression. So what is the return type of lambda?
So lambda return type. Okay, so it returns. Okay, um, okay, I knew about that. Uh, I think it's like it's an implementation of functional interface. s- I think it's void. I'm not sure. No, it's not void. Return type of a method. It must be a functional interface. I'm not sure about the return type right now.
Oh, okay, that is fine. Okay, yeah, hi Anubhav. So we are just discussing some basic stuff with the Java. So yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I sorry, I joined late. So
yeah, maybe you can
we have
proceed. Yeah.
Prashant, what all stacks have you worked on so far?
Stack as in technologies, right?
Yes.
So along with Java, I have worked on Spring Boot, and currently I'm using Kafka, and I have used database technologies like MySQL, Oracle.
Okay. And what databases have you used so far?
MySQL and Oracle.
Okay. I think I heard you some Java 8 questions were there. So you were discussing about the Lambda functions, right?
Yes.
So can you tell me when you use Lambda functions and when you use a normal function?
Okay. So again, like in Java 8, we got functional programming. So functional programming gave us some advantages over OOPS. So let's say previously before Java 8 we used to do anonymous classes. So Lambda expression could be an alternative of those anonymous classes. We can reduce our functionality or line of code in that sense. Otherwise, if we are not using that, we can use a normal function.
Okay. Can you tell me what are streaming in Java?
Streaming in Java, streaming,
Yes.
okay. I have used Stream API. I'm not sure about streaming.
Yep.
If you are talking about Stream, then Stream is an API which is basically used to process collections of data. So let's say if I have a data structure, let's say array list, I want to process that, I can use Stream API.
Okay. So what kind of processing are you doing with the stream?
There was one functionality that I recently did. I used parallel stream functionality there because we had to process a large chunk of data from the database. So it
Mhm.
required us to do some optimization. So in that case, I had to use parallel stream so that I can utilize the multiple cores and do some kind of efficiency. Let's say it should take less time than expected. So in that case, I use Stream API.
What is the difference between normal streaming and parallel streaming?
When we talk about normal streaming, it just it just does one task at a time. So when we talk about parallel stream, it utilizes the multiple cores of your available system on which we are running our application. And throughout, it uses multitasking, which is like a CPU scheduling task. So depending on that, it provides, let's say, separate threads, and those separate threads are actually doing the same task throughout at a time, so that it can actually divide and then uh, do a task. So it provides us, let's say if we are doing one task right now, it will take 1 hour, let's say. And if we are doing two tasks and it is again doing it in 1 hour, so we have limited it down to 30 minutes. So that kind of efficiency is what is provided to us by parallel stream.
So in parallel streaming, you are using threads. So is there any thread limitation available in that process?
Again, like it depends on course. So threads are being created depending on our course. If you have quad core system, it provides you more threads. And again, we should not do 100% utilization. And by default, Java does that for us. I'm not sure, but again, yeah, that's a possibility. So depending, it totally depends on our system. Let's say if we are deploying it in a server, which is a quad core, which is very good, so there we don't have to think about threats because there could be a lot of threats there.
Okay. What is your experience in Spring? How many years have you worked?
Spring, I have worked in, I think 3 years. 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with Spring, what have you used for database?
Previously, the project was very old, so there was JDBC connection there. So I used JDBC templates along with Spring MVC. So previously that was the functionality. Then we slowly migrated towards Hibernate ORM tool. These are the things that I've used. Database was in MySQL.
Okay. So in Hibernate, when you have used Hibernate, how does Hibernate queries into database?
So there are two options basically. So like I said, Hibernate is an ORM tool. So it provides us more functionality. Like it has its own query language, HQL. So in Hibernate query language, we don't write the complete query, and it basically is an object relational mapping. So we don't have to do much query. We just have to map one object to another. And in this case, an object is a table or it could be a column of that object. So depending on that, we do queries in Hibernate
You said you don't have to query completely. What does that
completely.
mean?
So we don't have to do select star. That I meant by complete query.
So you don't have to do select start. So how do you do that select or update? How do you differentiate between them?
So there are methods provided to us. So like we have a query interface, and in that we have methods like execute, list, set first, and things like that. So when we do query, Hibernate knows that it doesn't have to do select star. It will be provided to us. So we just have to do like from which table we want to do the query. So if we have to insert, we can use the insert method. So that's how it differentiates.
Okay. So when you're using Spring with Hibernate, how does Spring calls an Hibernate query?
Spring doesn't calls Hibernate queries, so we have so let me tell you in this sense because I can
Mhm.
give you the example in that case. So in our project, we had a lot of properties file, which was a burden, but we had a lot of properties file, and they were not a singular entity. They were being called out through Spring. So we had properties file. In that properties file, we mentioned the Hibernate related configuration. So that is being called by Spring. It is not actually um, doing the query. It is just setting the Hibernate, or you can say readying your Hibernate framework so that you can use the query through Hibernate.
Okay, but Spring will invoke something to Hibernate, right?
Uh,
Can you give me an example? How will it is invoke the Hibernate query?
Okay, so I can give you this example. So let's say if I had the Spring
Mhm.
project, there was no Hibernate there, and we were using, let's say, JDBC. So I just wanted to migrate my project towards Hibernate. So what should I do? So we just have to first add the dependency of Hibernate. So that is how we will get the Hibernate rated jars. In that, with that we are done, and then we have to create a configuration. So there is a configuration class, like we are talking about Spring now. So there is a configuration class, and we just have to create an instance of that configuration class, and then in that configuration instance we have to set properties related to Hibernate. So Hibernate requires an XML file, and that XML file is having all kind of information, like do you want to create each time you are running your application, or do you just want to update each time you are running your application. So things like that we configure in our XML file. Spring reads that XML file, and reading that XML file, it generates all the necessary stuff that is required by Hibernate.
Okay. And after generation, how would it call it? Like if you have 10 tables and you want to query only two tables.
Okay, so let's say so we can create a session factory. And
Mhm.
after creating that session factory, we just have to create a session. And a session can be of multiple databases. And a session has to begin a transaction. And after beginning of that transaction, we just have to tell Hibernate, this is the object which I want to
Mhm.
insert. So I just have to have object ready, or I can create an object, let's say employee object. I provided all the details like ID, name, salary, and then I will just persist that object through that session. Then it will save.
Okay. So you mentioned there will be a transaction included in it, right? If you have two
Yep,
tables, three tables.
yes.
So how would you make that transaction understand that it has to fail down if even if it is a single element failure?
So that's the beauty of Hibernate. It provides us transaction management. So when we talk about transaction management, this is the pure definition. Let's say something bad happens when we are trying to insert or do any kind of query. In that case, transaction management gives us functionality. Do you want to roll back or do you want to still go on? So in case if we are getting some kind of bad error while doing the query, we can roll back, and that will be done by Hibernate.
So you will have to extensively call the rollbacks.
Not extensively. Let's say if I have like you said an example of two tables, or let's say two separate queries, and in that case, let's say if I have to do some kind of customization of only one query, I have to handle one query in a specific way. So I can either use rollback or Hibernate will do it for me. So it provides us auto transaction management.
Okay. What all like in Spring have you used annotation based or what was version of Spring you
So
used?
actually, like I said, the project was a legacy one, so I have used both XML based, Java based, and annotation. So all three types.
Okay. So in annotation based, what all annotations have you used so far?
Okay, so the main or the main frequently used one is controller. So we use that auto wired required, um, and we have qualifier along with auto wired, and configuration is there.
Mhm.
Um And to reduce the XML functionality, we used component scan. Bean annotation is there. Um, uh, yeah, component controller, service
Okay.
repository. So yeah, these all
Uh,
annotations.
have you used a request
Mapping,
annotations?
request mapping.
Yes.
Yes, I have used.
Okay. So what is the use of the request mapping annotations?
So let's say if I have to create an API, which is a big term. So REST controllers um, is like a futuristic version of request mapping. So previously we used to use controller along with request mapping. So let's say if I want to create a login page and my login page leads me to my login controller. So whatever I want to do on my login page, rather it could be fetching the information or inserting the information, we can handle through request mapping because it says like the pure definition is like we some if something is being happening on our page, we have to have a request, and that request has to be mapped to towards some kind of method or maybe some kind of bean object, anything. So that is what we call request mapping, and we use it for every request coming through our view or pages.
If you have a lot of data coming in, how would you map it in the request?
So if I have a lot of data coming in, I would prefer to use a collection because that would be an efficient approach, or I can create an object, let's say a Pojo class, and that object can be mapped towards all those details which are being fetched from the view so that I can easily map them.
So how would your API understand that the Pojo class has to be used
So,
rather than using a normal one-to-one parameter?
when we talk about MVC, we can use model here. So view has to have a model um, ready. So let's say if I have a controller and request mapping and I'm on some kind of action, or let's say slash login, I'm just going towards view. In that very same view, I can add my object in my model. So what will happen is when we are using a form to submit, my view knows, because I have added that code, my view knows that this is the object and these are the variables which are linked to all these input fields in my view. So when I click on submit, it sends back a response to my request mapping, an object of that type which I have added to the model previously.
Okay. Fine. What is dependency injection in Spring?
So dependency injection is an implementation of IOC. So dependency injection basically provides us a functionality where we can have, so it looks like everything is being done by Spring, but we used to provide XML configuration, and that XML configuration consists of what object we want to create and how do we want to create it. So what Spring does for us is it uses dependency injection to use that XML file as a blueprint, and it creates object for us, and we don't have to do that. So that is what is dependency injection. Basically, it is a design pattern.
Okay. But how would Spring create the objects? Like, will it create every time when you will like call it, or how is it called?
So that's how that's one more functionality, which is scope. So it comes down to being scope. So let's say if I'm using singleton, so it is going to create only one instance, one object. So if we use prototype, it is going to do every time. So that's how it will differentiate.
Okay. What are different scopes available?
So we have, like I said, a singleton, prototype, session, global session, and HTTP session was there. Yeah.
Okay. And what is the difference?
In between these. Okay, so okay, so singleton gives us only one instance, and that's it. Prototype gives us one or more. Each time we have a we want to create or we call out our XML, it is going to create an instance for us. Then we have session. So with session, it is going to create an instance each time we are calling out or using that session, that very same session. Global session is like throughout our application. So um, the basic difference between global session and session is that global session is going to be available throughout our application. Session can be one or many. So for a particular session, if we are using it, or let's say just calling it, then it is going to create a bean per session. But for global session, it is going to create per global session, which is live throughout our application.
Okay. You have used Spring Boot as well, right?
I have, yes.
So what is the difference between Spring MVC and the Spring Boot
Okay,
when you?
sure. So I can say for a developer perspective that Spring Boot gives us some kind of bootstrapping. It reduces time of configuration. So let's say I can give you the example of Spring MVC. We have to download a lot of jars, a lot of dependencies. We have to do a lot of configuration initially. Then we have to have a server ready with us. It could be Tomcat. Spring Boot reduces all this stuff. It has embedded Tomcat server. It reduces the dependencies to parent, and there are like a lot of parents through which you can download all the childs, which we don't have to take care of. And then it reduces the configuration part, so we just have to have like we can use spring.io, like start.spring.io, to download the project, and we can directly run it. We don't have to do any kind of configuration.
Okay. Uh, you have used AutoWire, right?
I have, yes.
So what are different types of auto wiring you can do?
Okay, so types, okay, so we can do by type, by name, and then by constructor, and then there is one default.
Can you repeat again? By type, name, and
So so first is no auto wiring, that is one type. Second is by name, by type, and by constructor. And then there is this auto detect.
okay, fine. And how does the auto wiring being handled in Spring? How does the IOC understands which form of it?
Okay, so here we have dependency injection again. So auto wire what does is, so when we have mentioned in our XML file that this is the object I want to create, I have to mention also if I want to use AutoWire or not. So if I'm not using the annotation, I have to use word by AutoWire by type or by name there. Otherwise, we can directly use the annotation. So what it does is, depending on if we have configured by name, by type, it checks or it maps the object available in the XML, and the object name, if we have given like by name, so it will just check are these two things equals to each other. If they are, then it is going to map these two.
Okay. Uh, on the Java side, what version of your Java you are using?
8,
Java 8.
8, yes.
Okay. Do you know what is difference between a list and a linked list, array
Yes,
list and linked list?
sure. Array list and linked list, right?
Yes.
So depending on Java 8 or just array list
Oh,
versus.
just you can tell us the difference.
Okay, so linked list is used for some particular operations, because so I can differentiate array list and linked list on those operations. So like manipulating is really easy in array list, and insertion and deletions are efficient in linked list.
Efficient in.
Like insertion and deletions are efficient in linked list. Like they give us good time complexity.
Okay.
So like
So
we
if you want to read a lot of data from a database, would you prefer a linked list or a array list?
if I just have to insert, so I would use array list in that case, because first it is simpler to use, and addition like it gives us like O1 complexity. So so yeah, that's like we can use either
While
actually. Actually, we can use either. It just a preference of a developer. So, like they both are good with insertion.
so during reading from database, which will be a faster performance?
Reading, as in getting. So if
Getting
we
the data from data.
so
Yeah.
like array list has on time complexity for any add remove operation, and it has O1 time complexity for uh, uh, getting let's say so array list works on indexes, linked list doesn't work on indexes. So if I just have to get a particular element from an index, linked list is not a choice, because it has to iterate till that index, and then it has to fetch the item. But array list can directly fetch from the index. So in that case, array list would be a preferable choice.
Okay. Have you used any testing tools, developer
Uh,
testing tools
no,
like
like
JTest or
like
JTest? Anything?
okay, that I have used, yes, JUnit framework, yes,
So
unit testing.
what have you used with JTest? Is it like Mockito classes or Power Mockito or something?
Not yet.
Okay. So how do you test your classes? Like what kind of testing have you written?
So we do only unit testing as of now. So our convention that we have is that let's say if we are doing any kind of functionality, it could be addition, it could be deletion. So for like per class we need a JUnit, and then per functionality we need a JUnit. So that's the convention that we are following right now.
Okay. And during this J test, are you running end-to-end flow or you are testing only particular classes?
No, no, we are doing end-to-end flow.
End-to-end.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Have you used any development processes, deploying any jars or anything? Are you using that?
So we don't have a process as of now. So we have a DevOps team. So
Mhm.
that is the team responsible for that task. So we don't have to do anything. We just have to commit, and then Bamboo
Okay.
creates a jar, and that's how it picks up. It gets picked up
What
throughout
kind
the
of
team.
repositories are you using?
Pardon?
What kind of repositories are you using? Code
Uh,
repositories?
we use Bitbucket and Git right now, and yeah, that's all. Our yeah, that is all.
Okay. And how does it gets deployed? Like, what does DevOps team use to deploy it? Do you know?
I'm not sure about that because we are not familiar with it. But in my knowledge, what we know about is that when we do commit, when we know that okay, this sprint or this release has to go at this particular time and testing has been done. So we do have a migration process. What happens there is like that this release has to pick up, and we know that this is the server that this build has to go to. So DevOps team at that particular timeline picks up the jar, and maybe it could be a war. So then they deploy. They have their own kind of tools that they use. I'm not familiar with that, but they don't do it manually. So they have those tools, and they have automation there. So they just need to know.
Have you used ever any front-end development?
I have used JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Yes.
Is it recently you have used or is it long back?
So I would say like it's not frequent, but I use it still.
Whenever is required it is.
Yes,
Okay.
whenever is required.
Uh, Prashant, last question. What is your total experience right now?
5.6.
Pardon?
5 years and 6 months.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Jagdish, I'm done with the technical round. If you want to go ahead with the MR.
Yeah. Okay. So on technical side of it, have you used any pipeline you are aware of?
CI/CD, yeah, I am, but I haven't done it that much aggressively, so I'm just familiar with it.
Okay. So can you just tell me in your current organization what is your day-to-day activity, how your day start, and what are all things you do?
Currently, what my responsibility is like we have a product, and it's a big product, so it's like a suit, and we have two applications with us. So we have a sprint, and throughout those sprint we have to decide which story epic we have to pick. And usually we don't get those a lot because each epic is uh, like it has a lot of work to do. So it takes around 1 month, 1.5 month to complete. So day-to-day activities are basically same throughout the day, like in a month, because we are working on the same thing. So I am responsible for two applications in that suite. So I am so like we have two stand-ups in a day, and after that we just have to work on the development side. In case if there is any kind of issue, we try to consult with our team to figure out the issue. And if in case like we have a review ready with us, so I do the review, like peer review, just that. So yeah, then we do dev testing if the development is ready, and then we just commit. So that's my day-to-day work.
So you use Jira to maintain all your
Yes,
artifacts?
yep.
Okay. And usually, how your sprint is long? It's a 2 week or 3 week?
It's actually 3 week.
Okay. Oh, okay. That is from my end. Anything you would like to ask, Prashant?
I can, yeah, sure. So I just want to know about the project for which the role is.
I think right now we have multiple projects. We are not sure where to put you right now,
Mhm.
but obviously the tech stacks which are required are around Java, Spring, and Hibernate. Okay,
Okay,
so the database may change depending on the project, but the projects we are looking after for multiple projects, people for multiple projects. You
okay.
might be placed in somewhere around it.
Okay, and so I know about TCS that because there's a bench process also. So for me, like if everything goes well, so is there any kind of duration that I have to sit on bench and then get assigned to the project?
Right now we have very low bench strength, and that's why we are looking for more interviews. So if you get to get in, you won't be sitting on bench for long.
O-
Might be a week or so, and you will be getting selected in the projects in that 1 week.
Okay. Okay, then one last question. So in the email invite link that I got, I did not see any job description or the role for which this opening is. So can you brief me about that? Like what role is it?
I think Shubhrajyoti, can you answer that?
Yeah, hi, Anubhav. Thanks. Yeah, so Prashant, that from any of our TAG team will connect with you regarding that role when the offer is rolled out of the, or your fintech. They
Okay,
will connect.
okay, okay, sure. Then I'm done with all my questions.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the screenshot is pending. So Anubhav and Jagdish, can you please turn on your videos?
Yes. Jagdish, are you there?
Yeah, done. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Prashant. Thanks for joining us. So we will get back to regarding the feedback by today or by
Yeah,
tomorrow.
sure. Thanks. Thanks
Sure.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
You may
Bye
go
bye.
ahead.